So for those of you who have just joined us, welcome to our session today, Pave Your Path, Discover Your Purpose, Impact and Success. I'm honoured to introduce you to Professor Debbie Haski-Leventhal, who is a Professor of Management at Macquarie University Business School and an expert in corporate social responsibility, responsible management education and volunteerism. She has published over 60 academic papers and several books, including Strategic CSR, Holistic Approach to Responsible and Sustainable Business, and The Purpose-Driven University. She is also a TED speaker and a public speaker on purpose, impact, and meaningfulness. Over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Olivia, and welcome everyone. I'm so delighted to be here to talk about how you can pave your path, discover your purpose, impact, and success. Before we begin, I want to say Happy International Peace Day. So today, the 21st of September, is International Day of Peace, which wouldn't have been what it is if it wasn't for one filmmaker, Jeremy Gilly, who was very passionate about making films, but also about conflict and peace. And he wanted to make a film about peace, only to discover there is no international day where people celebrate peace and even stop fighting. And so he offered it to the UN, and he worked for a couple of years to make it happen. And at some point, he even worked in Afghanistan to get the Taliban back then to commit to not fighting on the 21st of September. But he also used that to make such a huge difference. And that's what I want to talk about here today. And the idea of how you find your purpose and how you start with your why. So you probably heard about the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek, still golden. And what Simon Sinek says is that we all know what we do and how we do it, be it individuals or organizations. But the successful organizations and the successful individuals actually start with their why. They know why they do what they do. They start with a purpose. And that makes such a huge difference, because people are more engaged emotionally when we know our why. And that leads me to the definition of purpose, which is the reason for which something was created or for which something exists. So if you think about anything around you, for example, I've got this glass of water. It was created to hold the water so that I can drink more easily. And so whatever it is that we have created around us as a purpose, but when we think about our life purpose, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So I want to present to you an idea that I've been developing, which is called the unique impact purpose. How, as organizations and individuals, we can define who we are and why we do what we do through the impact that we have on others, the difference that we make in other people's life. My personal journey towards purpose started when I was 20, and I just left my home to go and study philosophy at the university. And with no financial support, I had to find creative ways to survive. So I took on some odd student jobs and I typed students' assignments, as you can see here in the photo. But what I did next completely changed my life and actually led me to where I am today. So I worked with a little boy in a tutoring program where I've met with him twice a week, and in return, I got half my tuition fee waived. I worked with him because he was a very sweet boy, a little bit nerdy, but he got bullied a lot. And his teacher told me that she was very worried about his future. It stayed with me for years, and I often thought, what had become of him? And so I worked with him. I really felt like I made a difference in his life. And so I continued to volunteer for another year. Then I became the volunteer coordinator and the vice manageress of the entire project. That led me to enroll in a master's degree of management of not-for-profit organization, and later into a PhD on volunteering, which is why today I'm a professor of volunteering and corporate social responsibility. So you see, that little opportunity I took during my higher education years led me to an entirely different kind of a career, which I did not expect. And so here at Macquarie University, you have ample opportunities to do things that are meaningful through PACE units, global leadership program, volunteering opportunities, student bodies, and other ways for you to engage in making a difference in someone else's life. today are three kind of models that I have developed on how you can live a more purposeful life. So when I say here, discover your purpose or find your purpose, I don't think that there is a one purpose you need to discover. Instead, you can live a more purposeful life starting today by discovering what you're good at, what is your talent, what are your skills, and how you can tie them to what gives you joy to create a positive impact. One of our alumna, Steph Lorenzo, she started an organization called Project Futures, using her great talent and joy as a project manager and someone who knew how to create wonderful events and raise money for people in the developing world who went through the hardship of modern slavery and human trafficking. And so this is how you can find your personal purpose. Moving on to the idea of finding purpose through your work is a role purpose. And a role purpose happens when you understand what it is that you do and what skills you're using to be doing it, together with your passion, in order to create a positive impact around you. So whatever it is that you're doing at your work, start thinking, how can I use my role, use my power to create a positive impact? So an organizational purpose can be found when you tie who you are as the organization, what you do, what you know best, to a positive impact on the environment or the community. Think, for example, about the Australian company Thank You, that started off because Daniel Flynn went to university, and in one of his classes he learned that over 900 million people don't have access to clean water, and decided to do something about it, starting Thank You Water, to find a purpose and create an impact. Today they have such a huge range of products, because as Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And because Thank You has such a strong purpose and such a strong why, people are comfortable buying anything from them, be it diapers or body care or food or water. And so they live by their purpose, which, as you can see in the definition here, is tied to benefiting the global and local community. This is a definition by Ernst & Young from their great report, The Business Case for Purpose, where you can find more information around how you can develop a purpose-driven organization. Why is this all important? Because when you find your purpose and when you live by your purpose, you can create a sense of meaningfulness in your life and in your work. I'm not going to go through all these definitions. Let me just say that the sense of meaningfulness derives from our sense that there is value to what we're doing, that it matters, and that we are creating something significant in the world, usually by impacting others. And so through your study, through your work, you can find your meaningfulness, your sense of meaningfulness, by exploring opportunities such as the ones that I've mentioned, to find new ways to volunteer and do something meaningful. So let me end by saying, how can you take all these ideas and implement them tomorrow? So when you think about tomorrow, think about what you can do, be it as a social entrepreneur or business entrepreneur, as a business leader, an employee, or even as a student and a citizen. So as an entrepreneur, if you're going to start a business, consider starting a social business, such as Who Gives a Crap, where the money from the sales goes to support sanitation projects around the world, or whatever it is that you are passionate about. There is no reason why a business enterprise shouldn't be a social enterprise. In fact, it can utilize a lot more resources and support. Then we can look into what we can do as business leaders, where we don't just create a sense of purpose in our organization, but we become a purpose enablers for everyone around us, for all the employees. And by doing so, we also create a sense of engagement and passion of our employees. If you are an employee or you're going to be working for an organization, try to find one that really aligns with your values and your purpose, because being pampered will only engage you so far. And finally, as a citizen or a student, you can look around you for opportunities to volunteer, even volunteer online, participate in social activism, start a social movement on social media, or do whatever it is that you can to make a difference. Why? Because our actions do matter. Going back to my personal story, I recently found this little boy who I worked with all these years ago. He's no longer fragile. He's now a family man with 2 kids of his own, and he's a manager in a large IT company. So the little volunteering I did with him so many years ago really did make a difference, because he still remembers me. I really hope to see you around at Macquarie University, maybe even teach you. And I hope that you will take on all these opportunities you've got around us in this wonderful university to make a difference and feel like your life matters. Thank you so much, and happy International Peace Day.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your insights and guidance, Debbie. I mean, personally, I can say that I'm definitely inspired to find my own purpose now. Now, we have had a few come in, so I'm just going to dive straight into them. So, Debbie, you touched on this a little bit, but I was just wondering what opportunities there are for Macquarie students who want to make an impact.
So thank you for that, Olivia. There are ample opportunities for students at Macquarie University to reach out and do things that are important for the community, for society, and for the world. One of the many opportunities that we have is around Enactus, which is a global movement of university students working together to start social enterprises and address social issues. So this year, I'm delighted to let you know that actually the Enactus Macquarie University team was a finalist in the national competition, and our team came to the top 4 places in Australia when they worked on inclusive teaching. And there are many other opportunities through PACE, volunteering, working with refugees, and so on. But open your eyes and open your heart to try and finding ways in which you can do something meaningful.
Definitely. I mean, it's great to hear about the extracurricular opportunities, but also the opportunities that students get within their own courses to kind of inspire that passion and learn a little bit more about different areas that they may be interested in. So in applying that kind of thinking to the workplace, what can employees do to either make their work or workplace more impactful or meaningful to them?
That's a really good question. And I think many of us think about, okay, the day after we graduate, or what are we going to do with our degree? And is it going to help us find a better job, maybe a better salary? But what is really important, and what research shows us, is that what's going to make you happy in the workplace is not about the title or the role or how much you're going to make. It's about the sense of impact that you have, that you really are making a difference, and that you are fully aligned in your purpose and values with your employer. So when you look for a new job, maybe after your degree or during your degree, make sure that you look for an employer that really is congruent with your values and your purpose. And if you can't find one, or maybe you already are working somewhere where you don't feel that there is a full alignment, change the organization within. Start sustainability movement within the organization. There are many employers now that allows employees to volunteer or even start their own social enterprises within the organization, so they can make a difference while still being employed.
Yeah, definitely. And we just had another question come through that was a little bit similar, but I was just wondering if you had any additional advice or suggestions for what to do if you find that the business's purpose is very different from an individual's purpose, and how to kind of go about that.
That's another great question. So thanks for bringing this questions in. So that happens. And sometimes it could mean that, we get out of our comfort zone, we work for an employer, which could open our eyes to a whole new set of values and purpose. But when we feel that there is no purpose, or that the purpose is only, if we can even call it purpose, only focusing on making money, then we don't feel really engaged in what we do. And interestingly, 75% of employees today in Australia are not engaged in their work, and 25% are actively disengaged. And the main reason for this, as I've mentioned just now with the Ernst & Young report, is that a lot of people don't feel that their organization has a strong purpose. And here I'm talking about impact purpose, where your purpose is to generate positive social impact. So again, you have three options. One is to leave the organization, try to find a job elsewhere. Two, to do nothing and continue to be miserable. Or three, try to change the organization from within. So stand up for what you believe in, speak to the leadership of the organization, show them the research that where, you know, employees are much more engaged and performance is better, and even financial performance is better in organizations with a strong purpose.
Fantastic. That's so helpful to know. And now we've had a few more questions. Someone's asking, you know, after spending a really long time in a particular role, for example, this person spent over 20 years in the corporate world, is it ever too late to, you know, follow a completely different passion of maybe continuing education?
It's never too late. I remember there was this woman in the Olympics, you know, I think it was last time, she was like 90 and she was doing gymnastics. It's never too late. I could tell you a story that I've discovered one of my new passions last year. And I'm probably older than you are, starting playing the piano and finding so much joy in classical music. And that only started last year. So it's never too late to start or to you know, embrace new opportunities, to look for new ways of doing things, and to finding a way of, you know, doing your impact. I even saw CEOs in large corporations completely shift direction for themselves and for the whole organization in a much later stage in life, where they realized, I remember one story of a CEO working in a large multinational corporation, but he was the managing director of the branch in Australia. And his daughter, who was older, she was probably some of, you know, your age, in her 20s, and she went to Cambodia and she discovered the whole, you know, terrible reality of human trafficking, which I mentioned before, but that's another story. And she told her father, you have to come and volunteer with me. And as he says, once you see, you cannot unsee. And then he decided to become a warrior for human rights, and he shifted the whole direction of the organization to be around human rights. And so he was in his 50s or 60s. So it's never too late to embark on the journey of finding your purpose and doing something different, either within your role, within your education, or maybe shifting directions altogether.
Fantastic. I mean, that it's so good to hear that it's never too late to, you know, maybe change what you want to do or go into a different field. But we know that there can be some challenges. And we've had a question about what advice you would give to a mother wanting to return to studies while working full time. And obviously, we've got a little bit of increased flexibility now, but what advice would you give in that scenario?
Juggling is never easy, but it's definitely possible. Having two kids who are doing remote learning, well, not now because it's school holidays in Australia, but up until last Friday, it's not easy. But it's, you know, you find new ways of doing it. You find new ways of managing your time. And you can endure almost any what if you have a strong enough why. If you know why you're doing it, why you're taking this new degree, why, what you want to achieve with it, why what you'll learn here will matter for what you want to do later. It's much easier to endure your what when you have a strong enough why. I'm not saying it's easy, it's not, but I had tons of students who had children, I encourage my students to come with babies to the class when we're still having face-to-face classes. I don't mind children coming around the Zoom calls. It's just, you know, that's life. And it's not just for mothers, it's for fathers too. We all need to juggle upbringing our children and all the other life duties.
Definitely. And at least the one positive out of COVID, if I'm even allowed to say that, is the, flexibility that we've got with our courses now, both undergraduate and postgraduate, in being able to do classes and lectures from home. So to be able to do that in your own way and in your own space is really good too. Cool.
Absolutely.
So we've still
gave us a new kind of flexibility. Yeah.
Definitely. We've still had a few more questions come through. So we've had one that says, if I can't find my purpose and I don't know what my next step should be, I'm really confused where nothing seems to be working for me. Do you have any tips?
My biggest tip is just do something and, go and go online, do volunteer around, volunteer opportunities near me and find something to do. There are volunteering online that you can do, even, while we are in lockdown, if you are in lockdown, that you can still do. You start doing something and slowly you start discovering what it is that you love. And you can volunteer online in multiple kind of organizations. For example, you love science, you care very much about scientific contribution. What you can do is you can go on the Australian Museum and volunteer in their Digiball, where volunteers submit entries to to capture artifacts, their museum, human connections. Maybe try to volunteer in help lines, such as kids helpline and so on, where you can, even from home, go and help others who needs you. So don't wait to, discover a big purpose. Try to think what it is that I can do today and start. And you have no idea how it might change you.
Definitely. Now, on a similar note, but slightly different, someone's also asked if they're changing their mind all the time and they can't really decide between, maybe different areas that they want to work on, what techniques can they use to actually make a decision?
Let me tell you, some of the best people I know couldn't figure out what they want to do with their lives until they were 40 or more. I think we are raised from a young age to just decide on one thing that you have to do. What do you want to do when you grow up? And it's such a wrong question. Instead, asking what kind, who do you want to be? What kind of a difference do you want to make? Don't worry about having to choose one thing and having to leave all the other options behind. We no longer have to do that. We could really embrace different kind of opportunities, roles, even personalities in our lives. And it's wonderful to keep on trying. So there's something about society that wants you to, settle down and decide on your job. And oftentimes we meet people and say, what do you do? Like, give me your role, give me your job description so I can understand who you are. But I think the most interesting people are the one who just like, I don't know. Let's see where life takes me.
Well, that's good, because I definitely define myself as that sort of person. I know even just it's a few years ago now, but coming out of high school, trying to decide, that one path that you need to take, and then even finishing an undergraduate degree and almost being faced with the same thing. But yeah, I think there's definitely opportunities now for people to, be able to find their own path and look at different interests at the same time. So another question here, which I think will be our last question for today. Do you have any examples of organisations that we can volunteer in? I know that you've mentioned one before, and you've obviously mentioned an Actus at Macquarie, but any that you can think of that are available for students or individuals to get involved in?
Absolutely. Before I answer that, I just want to mention that my older daughter, she's in year 12 now, and she's undergoing the same kind of debate. What do I need to do? And I tell her, just study something that you love. Study something that gives you joy. The career will come thereafter. Don't worry so much about career choices right now. Just find what it is that gives you joy, what it is that you love doing, and everything else will unfold. And that goes the same for people now considering the postgraduate degree. Look at what really you're passionate about, what you love doing, because you're going to be doing it for 2, maybe more years, and it's important that you do something that you love. Around volunteering opportunity, there are websites that shows you where you can volunteer. So there are websites by Volunteering Australia and do something near you and so on, so you could have that. But also in Macquarie University, there are volunteer opportunities. If you go on to Macquarie University website and you look for volunteer, you'll find all these different opportunities for students and for staff. If you maybe get to be employed in Macquarie University one day, that we can do together. And keep in mind what it is that we want to achieve as the human race. You know, fighting climate change, working towards zero poverty, zero hunger, and how you can contribute to this beyond alone. And don't think, oh, tomorrow morning I have to start fighting climate change. How can I contribute in my everyday life's work, education, to achieve?
Definitely, yeah. I think it's so important not to get, I guess, overwhelmed by the big issues and be able to actually just think about how you can make those, you know, small changes or impacts in your own life. So thank you so much for that. And that was our final question for the session today. So for those of you watching at home, I do really hope that this session has inspired you to take that next step toward your own success. And I also just wanted to say thank you again to our guest speaker, Professor Haski-Leventhal, for providing us all with the tools we need to identify purpose and meaning in our own lives.
Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure being here today.